Mr. Radishevsky.
Here.
Mayor Peacock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Peacock is dealing with some personal and family issues. He is unable to attend the Committee of the Whole and the meeting this evening.
Approval of the October 4th, 2021 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Campos.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of October 4th, 2021.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radishevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Orland Park Health and Fitness Center membership fees.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Milani.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to increase the membership fees to the Orland Park Health and Fitness Center effective January 1st, 2022, as outlined in the attached.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Radishevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Snow Services bid award.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Milani.
move to recommend accepting the proposals from Beverly Snow and Ice Incorporated of Markham, Illinois, McGill Construction Company Incorporated of Frankfort, Illinois, and Construction Concepts of Tinley Park, Illinois, for snow and ice removal services in an amount not to exceed $498,750, and recommend authorizing the village manager to approve additional contractor support as needed, not to exceed $25,000 per contractor.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Do we have a presentation on this? Or is that just up there for that?
We do, if you have any questions or if you want to see anything. Would you?
Yes, Joe.
Okay. So tonight, we're here for approval of the contracts. Just a little bit of a background. Our current requirement for the maintaining of the snow and the routes, we have 22 routes. We have 5 main road routes and 17 primary and secondary routes. We have 502 cul-de-sacs and dead ends in our village. And those are in our routes, but very time consuming to do those cul-de-sacs. And we also have 18 parking lots and path routes that we also maintain for our village facilities and metro lots. Just some facts and figures from last year. We had 16 snow events, 3 were ice events. The list of about 42,000 miles that we traveled doing those events. Total inches, about 40 inches last year, ranging 1 to 12 inches. And then we also did passes and park and sidewalk visits throughout the year. For heavy events, we did use contractors for over 2 inches to help support those cul-de-sacs, just because of the time-consuming efforts. So this is kind of how we allocate the resources that we have in Public Works and Parks. Parks does help support us in the wintertime. We have 50 full-time CDL personnel, and they'll be working the hours from 6 to 2 p.m. of those 22 routes and 18 parking lots during working hours when we have snow events. We are concerned, obviously, for driver fatigue. So the max we ever want to go up to is 16 hours. But ideally, if we can try to get, depending on snow events, try to keep it below 12 hours. The 16-hour after hours are broken into 2 shifts, as listed on the slide. And the intent for those is that they would do the cul-de-sacs and the routes when it's less than 2 inches. But for larger than 2 inches, then we would bring those contractors in to help support our efforts. Just from a shortfall we identified last year, we had enough drivers on those shifts except because we're using our personnel in the parking lots, we didn't have enough to fulfill the 22 slots. So on average, we had about 8 on our PM shift, which is not enough to cover all those routes. In 2021 and 22, the plan is to utilize our CDLs that were in the parking lots on those routes, and then the parking lots would be done by contractor support. So this is the resource supplement plan. We issued the RFP for contract support on an hourly basis with equipment and personnel. Beverly Snow would be helping us with the parking lots, and for heavy events, the following 4 contractors are to supplement our workforce. So tonight, I just request approval for that contract support, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
Joe, what's the hard thing about cul-de-sacs?
So just when you push the snow in, you have to first identify a good location where the snow goes so it doesn't block a driveway, a fire hydrant, or a ComEd utility box. And because the multiple turns and back and forth for the cul-de-sacs, it just takes time versus the routes, the truck keeps on moving down through the streets and clears a much larger area. For the cul-de-sacs, that back and forth to move that snow in the location is the time-consuming portion.
Thanks.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Reardon?
is it just hourly? There's not like a general contract fee for, for the whole year, and then if they come, we pay them more?
No, it's at an hourly rate.
Only when we need them.
And we'll track that accordingly closely.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass?
I think more just a matter of clarification. I think I've heard this anecdotally that with the cul-de-sacs, we rotate them each snowfall. Is that correct as far as where we start? Or do we start in the same place every time?
That's a good question. I think there is some rotation. It's not, but generally our guys in the route are doing the route for less than 2 inches. They'll hit the cul-de-sac while they're doing that route. For the heavy, we're sending them out and trying to get as many of those areas done as quickly as possible, understanding, resources are always tight, and so we're trying to get to them as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Public Works Automatic Vehicle Locator System presentation.
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass?
I move to recommend approving the proposal from Samsara Incorporated dated September 9th, 2021 for Wi-Fi in-route guidance capability, dash cam equipment, web-based visual display, and real-time capability for $10,771.50 in 2021 through October and December, and $41,130 annually thereafter through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract, and recommend authorizing the village manager to execute an agreement with Samsara Incorporated for automatic vehicle locator system services.
Second.
We have a presentation.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to introduce Andrew Phelps and then Sean Ryan from Samsara. They're going to go ahead and give us a short brief, a little bit about the capabilities of Samsara for the village.
Good evening. Thank you for the time today to walk through our solution here. And we've been working with Joel and his team for the past several months, testing out the solution with their vehicles to make sure that this is exactly servicing their needs. And we've been able to put together a solution that specifically fits what they're looking to do within the village of Orland Park. As far as who Samsara is, we're a visibility company. We're a connected operations company. Our mission, our goal is to focus on improving the safety and efficiency of the operations that power our world. So specifically, we believe that the quality of life within any given community is directly tied to that local government's ability to deliver essential services on a day-to-day basis, and do so in a safe, reliable, and accountable manner. We're going into go slide 6. There you go. So obviously, the goal of any local government is to improve the citizen experience. That's an end goal, though. That's not where we start. We start from the bottom, working our way up. First and foremost, improving vehicle safety. That means having a three-prong approach when it comes to maintenance, from preventative maintenance scheduling and having that being driven by real-time access to odometer readings, engine hours, and dates, but also having a day-to-day driver level, vehicle level preventative maintenance and pre-trip inspections. And then the third prong being real-time access to diagnostics, being able to see exactly what is going on in that vehicle at any given time without having to wait for something to go catastrophically wrong. Because at the end of the day, no amount of good driving can overcome a bad vehicle or an unsafe vehicle. From there, we take it into driver safety, being able to provide the city with the proper coaching capabilities, proper data to not only coach driver behaviors and make sure that is being executed in a safe, reliable manner, but also making sure that in the event of an incident, especially one that is an at-fault incident, you have the data on your side to be able to assess a proper fault if at all needed. So exonerating your driver, protecting your drivers, especially in unsafe environments. From there, being able to provide department heads, especially with the actionable intelligence, to be able to determine where is the low-hanging fruit to be able to improve operations and benchmark. Ultimately, you can't improve what you don't measure. We have to be able to measure everything so you can decide what you need to focus on first, set a benchmark, and then execute your policy against that benchmark and determining how successful it was over time. After that, we got to figure out and make sure that you have the right vehicles in the right space so that you can have your vehicles responding to citizen inquiries, citizen emergencies, and overall community concerns as needed. And being able to have safe vehicles, safe drivers in the right place at the right time is ultimately how you're able to maintain that and improve upon that citizen experience. So we do that in a few different areas. First and foremost, we look at actually, at the beginning of the project, we looked at three main goals, three main sticking points. First was being able to provide better visibility, better transparency in terms of snow operations progress to the community at large. Not only being powered by real-time GPS, but also being able to turn that into your GIS solution that you have in place and have that being a citizen-facing website to not only provide updates in terms of what's going on, but also to minimize incoming calls and complaints about, where's the plow, when's the plow last come down my street. They'd be able to get that real-time access and not so much a cookie crumb trail that's based off of several minute delays and whatnot. Next was improving the fleet maintenance. We came across a few situations where vehicles were being failing state regulations, state inspections on things that should have been easily prevented before the vehicle even left the lot. And that's in prep for a state inspection. That's not even day-to-day operation. So being able to not only arm on the preventative maintenance, as I mentioned before, but also the pre-trip inspections, so that way a driver has the ability to flag a known issue and have it being able to be corrected in real time by your staff. And then while the vehicle is in operation, being able to get second updates in terms of what's going on in that vehicle, from fuel levels to check engine lights and then fault codes that may not even kick a check engine light immediately. And then last but not least, there was a strong desire to show Orland Park as the municipal leader in terms of fleet management services for your area, being on the cutting edge. So when we talk about being at the cutting edge, it's about putting in a solution and a platform that you can build upon for the future and that's able to meet tomorrow's demands in a real-time basis. So we come out with, last year we had 200 updates in the system that come out day to day. So we are constantly improving that solution. So when you're moving forward in this partnership, you're moving forward with an appreciating asset that is able to quickly respond to your needs and do so in a very reliable manner. But not only that, but also be able to provide a platform that you can even expand into over time, whether that's eventually getting into security cameras or monitoring generators or boilers in different buildings and whatnot. And this is an ecosystem that you start building in. And now, Grant, we're looking at the fleet for right now, but this is not something that where you have to worry about redoing this every couple of years or every year or building out this Frankenstein monster of a bunch of different solutions that may not even talk to each other all that well. We can start now and we can build out together as the needs arise. So in terms of our solution, let's get down to one more down. There you go. So the main areas that we were looking at in terms of the project is first and foremost real-time GPS. So being able to improve that fleet productivity, being able to look at the maintenance from an aspect of not only making sure the vehicles are safe, but also as issues arise, notifying mechanics in a proactive manner, so that way they can monitor and manage part shortages or whatever, and avoid that kind of downtime and avoid catastrophic repairs and issues. But also being able to look at fuel costs and other areas of operational costs and determine how do you want to change policy or implement policy in the first place to otherwise maintain and manage the costs that it affects the budget. Beyond that, in terms of snow operations, this is where our partnership with Esri, your GIS provider, comes into play. Being able to provide a map that ultimately shows where all the vehicles, how they progress throughout the streets in real time, and basically being able to update that web portal page that you want to put out to the citizens and allow them to be able to see what's the latest and greatest in terms of the snow operations progress. But ultimately, it's about improving response times and creating that level of trust and transparency with the community at large. The proximity search was a tool that we built out, and we believe this would be a great tool in the hands of your frontline customer service reps, as well as the department heads that are looking to investigate incidents. But at the end of the day, when you have a call coming in from a citizen saying, hey, there was a vehicle coming through this intersection, there's a vehicle that was speeding down this road, you'll be able to go and quickly determine which vehicles may be the ones in question and determine what was going on. So that way, instead of involving 3 or 4 levels of escalation, calling around and trying to figure out what happened, you can arm that frontline person to determine, was there even a vehicle? Was this one of our vehicles? And what do we need to do? Was it a misplaced fault where we can respond very quickly with data in hand to be able to stop that inquiry from continuing to escalate? And certainly not last but not least, but looking at the maintenance, again, as I mentioned, a 3-prong approach from preventative maintenance at an overall level, being able to schedule out oil changes, tire rotations, PMAs, PMBs, PMCs, based on odometer readings, engine hours, depending on what the vehicle needs. But also then having the day-to-day driver and vehicle level pre-trip inspection report to be able to determine what defects may be involved with that vehicle at any given time, to be able to flag that, stop that vehicle if it's unsafe from going on the road, or certifying that it is safe, and just having that peace of mind knowing that you are continuously running a safe fleet. And the last but not least, having that access to real-time diagnostics, so then as things change in that environment, that vehicle changed from minute to minute, you'll be able to have instant visibility into what's going on. You want to go ahead and show a live dashboard, Sean?
You may have to hit
So Andrew walked through a lot of what we're able to offer you guys, but we wanted to showcase what this actually looks like, just so you guys get a feel for how real time this is, how
there we go. So what we're looking at right now is an actual customer of ours. So these are real data that we're looking at right now. These are vehicles that are on the road. This is what your dashboard would look like. So on the left, we've got our roster of vehicles over here. We've got a map with points where all the vehicles are at. I can easily click into one of these vehicles, and you'll notice this is actually a moving vehicle as we speak. Give it a second to load here. We have the ability to see in real time this vehicle traveling down the road. So again, giving that frontline visibility to where these vehicles are in real time, and also where they've been. So we have the ability to see where they've been today, 3 months ago, a week ago. All that data is stored indefinitely. And then another piece of this, like Andrew spoke to, is the ability to understand, was there a vehicle somewhere at a certain point in time, especially as it pertains to a citizen calling in or potentially having concern of a vehicle that did something at some point in time. We have the ability to essentially type in an address and understand if there were vehicles near that particular address during that point in time. If I can get one to pull up here. So you'll see here, I've picked a particular address, and there's quite a bit of activity. So you have the ability to essentially type in a date, a time, and understand every single one of your vehicles that passed that address, how fast they were going, what time they were there, so you can quickly address any concerns that somebody may have as to somebody speeding, somebody clipping a car, whatever it may be, or just the fact that somebody actually did go by that address. Another really nice piece is the fact that our gateway is connected to the diagnostic port of these vehicles, which allows us to pull in a wealth of diagnostic information from the computers of those vehicles. So alluding to the maintenance piece that we talked about, you're getting real-time looks at fuel, as well as whether a check engine light is on or not. This is all real-time. This is all getting passed into the system as we're getting it from the vehicle's computer. So not only do you have the ability to see it in real time, but you have an aggregated way of looking at all of your vehicles as a whole and where they stand maintenance-wise. So as you guys can see here on the right side of the screen, there's a handful of vehicles that have fault codes, that have check engine lights on, and what we're able to do is set up alerts around these so that the right people are alerted at the right times when a check engine light goes on, and if it's a certain type of check engine light, an escalated alert, via text message as opposed to an email, so that you guys are keeping these vehicles on the road as much as possible. The other piece of maintenance is the preventative aspect of it, and so we do also have the ability for you to set up maintenance schedules. So oil changes, brake changes, whatever it may be, setting up automated alerts to go out to the right people at the right times as to when a vehicle needs to be pulled off the road, or ahead of time so that you're not having to pull multiple vehicles off the road at the same time because they're all due for maintenance. Another important piece of the GPS aspect of all this and that information that we're collecting is what Andrew spoke to in terms of being able to pass that information into your GIS system. So we have what we consider to be something similar to the GIS in terms of snow operations, in terms of being able to understand where all of your snow plows have been, where all of your spreaders have been during a snow event or a storm, understanding when they've traveled down certain roads, and then passing all this information into your GIS system so you can then share that with the public. So going back to that transparency aspect of what you guys are trying to accomplish. Another big piece of this is obviously the safety aspect of our system and what that's able to provide. We do offer dash cameras, and what we're able to do with those is help with driver exoneration. So when there's events on the road where a driver may not be at fault, we are able to capture that footage, bubble that up to the people that are important for that to be seen. In this particular video, we see here a vehicle that slides out on some streetcar ties and almost hits this truck with our dash camera in it. Without this footage, obviously this was a near miss, but if something had happened, it would be pretty easy for the driver to just say that the truck clipped me. But in this instance, it's obviously very clear that the driver did a really good job of avoiding a collision, and if there had been a collision, it wouldn't have been his fault. So being able to easily retrieve that video while these vehicles are out on the road, and in the event of any sort of harsh event, being able to track and measure that and understand how you guys are doing in terms of driver safety. I think that was it in terms of everything. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm always excited to see technology applied. That's probably not much of a surprise to the rest of this board, but curious, does this equipment also tie into any accident detection with sensors on the car? So does it notify when the vehicle's been in a collision?
Yeah, so the gateways have an accelerometer in it. We can tell G-forces, so we can track harsh braking, harsh stops, harsh turns, and crashes. And since there will be cameras in forward-facing, we can check stop signs and tailgating, and anything else that pertains to driver behavior as well.
Great. And then as far as route planning is concerned, I don't know, do we have route planning in GIS? Like where does that usually take place for us?
Yeah, we do have routes for those 22 routes. So we'll integrate them with Samsara, and then that'll create the route planning. We'll be working with them once it's approved.
That's exciting. So you could actually see when maybe you're 10 minutes behind on a given route and get some additional help out and do some of the more shifting on the fly.
You'll see, because it's multiple passes. So yes,
sure.
You'll be able to see those activity.
And then as far as the maintenance, it looked like it was on a schedule. Are you guys venturing into predictive maintenance at all? Is there any learning algorithms that you're going to be applying to the software in the future?
I mean, that's a good question. So I think that obviously the nature of fault codes and how these work, you'll see here. Let me see if I can find a good example. But there are certain situations where there's fault codes, but there's no check engine light. So there's obviously a varying degree. So I think the system does a good job, and we do allow you to schedule alerts for some of the lower tiered faults. So not necessarily predictive, but addressing something or being notified of something before it becomes a bigger issue is definitely a possibility.
So it has an accelerometer in it. We aren't measuring, vibrations and whatnot in the vehicles themselves. We do have that capability for other assets, such as, if we were to track like a pump or a compressor or a generator and whatnot, we can do that. So we have that capability in the system as a whole, but for the vehicles, we focus on the faults, and then whenever you want to track it on for preventative maintenance.
Okay. Are there any roadmap items that you can share with us? Anything that you're excited about that's coming in the future?
It's above my pay grade. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I guess I can speak to some of the things we've rolled out over the course of the past year, just to kind of give you an idea of what things are looking like headed to the future. So with these dash cameras, they all are edge processing, so essentially processing everything they're seeing in real time without having to upload it to the cloud and wait for the processing to happen there. So over the past year, we've rolled out the ability to detect unsafe following distances, forward collision warning, so being able to detect an impending collision and provide an audible alert within the cab to alert the driver. So even if there's not something already present in the vehicle that does that. So we're heavily focused on artificial intelligence in terms of that forward-facing camera and being able to understand. I know that lane departure is something that we're working on. So the future is in that edge processing and that AI, and that's kind of the foundation of the cameras and kind of where we're headed, in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think just my closing comments on this is, this is a great application of technology. I'm excited about predictive maintenance. I'm excited about, efficiency gains that we're going to gain from this, and particularly better optimize our snow routes. So this will also enable us to provide real-time visibility to the public on where the snow fleet's vehicles are, and more importantly, where they have been. I think during the last winter, these crews worked especially hard with thick, heavy, and unfortunately continuous snow for several days. Snow would quickly replace that, which was already plowed, and I think, residents were sometimes confused as to whether or not their street had been plowed. So I think once we have this installed, residents are going to have a lot more greater visibility and hopefully more understanding and patience when they see the zones that have been plowed. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Trustee Reardon?
For Joel Moore, I saw 40,000 approximately for the year. Can you give me just a rundown of where these will be? Obviously, the snow trucks we're talking about, but are these in like Parks and Rec trucks? Are they in anybody else? Is it just
so we're doing 56 of them. So it's most of our fleets with the snow. So the 1 tons, the dual axle trucks, but then we'll have a few other ones that we'll actually track as well.
And is it priced by how many we're using, or is it just a straight contract for the whole city?
How many we're using?
How many using at a time? Okay.
And this is modular, so we can always add on, and the plan is to eventually add on. But right now we're starting on snow.
And police have their own, right? They have their own whole system with their cars. Is it integrated at all in any way? Is it different companies and?
Right. The board may recall that recently there was a contract awarded for body cams, and that integrates with the
police vehicles.
The police vehicles as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Milani?
I think a couple of my questions were already answered, so thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Just a couple comments. I think our staff, they already do a great job with snow removal, and I think adding the contractors back in and then bringing this upgrade in our technology will definitely improve our efficiency over time. I also think it's, as Trustee Campos mentioned, we're going to add that level of transparency. Let our residents know that when the snow falls, someone will be coming soon to remedy it. And I think it also helped limit the number of calls to the Village Hall and to Public Works with people complaining that their snow's not done. So I think that'll be great. But I also think there's something else that comes with that. Our employees are going to get a little bit of accountability as well, which I think is going to be a good thing. So, and I also think over time we're going to see some overall productivity increases across our Public Works staff with this, because if we're going to be implementing it in more than just the snow vehicles, I think that'll be a help as well. But also other things like vehicle utilization, the time to replace, just general asset management as well. I think it's going to be nice to have some insight and, to get some of these real-time alerts to be able to see if we have a vehicle issue that we can take care of it. So thank you for the presentation, and that's all I have.
Madam Chairman?
Trustee Ratajkowski?
I have a question. So for that system and to be able to see, where the vehicles are, who has access to that? Who can see that information?
So the ESRI webpage will be on our webpage, so the public can see that piece, but actually tracking some of the maintenance and stuff, that'll be the Public Works staff.
Thank you.
That snow tracker is going to be it's going to be something new for the residents, and it will be on our website.
Thank you. Yeah, because I would imagine that they'd want to see it, and that would probably eliminate as many phone calls. So It's very helpful. Thank you, and thank you for your presentation.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Ratajkowski.
Aye.
Yeah, you seconded that. Trustee Healy. Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
An ordinance establishing a code of ethical conduct applicable to all Village of Orland Park employees and elected and appointed officials.
Madam Chairman?
Trustee Healy?
I move to recommend that the Ethics Commission review the proposed ordinance establishing a code of ethical conduct applicable to all Village of Orland Park employees and elected officials and appointed officials, and recommend to be presented to a future committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
Thanks, Brian.
Any questions or comments?
Repeat it, Brian. Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Campos?
Do we have a presentation on this before
I'm just going to maybe verbalize kind of just a little summary here, if that's okay.
Please.
Go ahead, George.
So the village board may recall the staff was given a directive to draft this policy, and it was specifically related to patronage and nepotism. So the policy in front of you, the draft right now, is based on a model code of ethical conduct that was formulated by Village Ethics, and that's a not-for-profit organization formed in 2000 by a former federal prosecutor. The draft ordinance also utilized resources, other model codes of ethics, and an anti-patronage policy that was adopted by the Metra Board of Directors in 2014 as a reform measure. This model ordinance, this draft ordinance, supplements the ethical standards of conduct ordinance that was adopted by the village board on April 20th, 2020. So it incorporates a number of ethical standards for employees. And as I mentioned, it deals with patronage and nepotism. The next step in this process is we are just rolling out the first introduction right now It's a very lengthy ordinance. It will go to the Ethics Commission that was previously formed. The Ethics Commission will weigh in on the ordinance, and then we'll bring it back to this committee to the whole to go into greater detail if the board so chooses, with an eventual adoption by the board.
So, Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Campus?
Yeah, so you already received my notes. I'm not going to go through those at all. I think the only additional thing, and I think it might have been inherent in my notes, is just I think we should be reviewing, to have the Ethics Commission review 186. I believe this will become 187, but just have them review 186 at the same time and make sure that they work together, right? Because, saw some language differences between the two and just want to make sure that those are more closely entwined.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Milani.
So back in May of 2019, we created an ad hoc committee that we're discussing here to develop an ethics ordinance for our elected and our appointed officials. And two people sitting up here today were actually on that committee. It took quite some time and a lot of deliberation until we all reached an agreement and codified our ethics ordinance in May of 2020. So we already have an ordinance pertaining to elected and appointed officials. So one of my concerns during the process was I felt employees were also needed that level of accountability, and we were kind of referred to, we have the employee handbook. So seeing this come out today is great. I'm glad we're starting to look at the employee portion of this and creating an ethics and code of conduct for them. But I'd also like to see maybe a comparison as we're going through this and bringing it to the Ethics Commission of what is in the employee handbook versus the draft ordinance to make sure that we're kind of on par, and which one is going to take precedence and so forth, because they should match.
So with regard to the employee handbook, it's very dated, and because of that, as we speak, we're undergoing a comprehensive rewrite of that whole thing.
Okay.
When that is all done, it will come before the board because we want the board to weigh in on it. We want the board to formally approve it. It provides more weight as we enact those provisions. So I wouldn't want to compare it to the old one because I believe it's just not complete.
Okay.
But we're about halfway done with a very good new one.
Oh, great. I'm always happy to hear improvement, so that's a good thing. So the other thing I have is I read through this thing probably 3 or 4 times to find out why we still had the appointed and elected officials as part of the title. I think we're really dealing with 2 separate entities. We're dealing with employees or appointed and elected officials. I think, we have 186. If that needs to be amended, I think there's one particular paragraph, N-1-B, which is kind of reflective of the action of an elected official. But the other call-outs to elected or village officials really pertains to the behavior of the employee. So if we're going to focus on the behavior of the employee, I think then that should be in a code of conduct for employees. And then if there are any addendums that we want to have for elected officials, as the Ethics Commission looks at this, migrate that into 186 and not make it part of the employee code, because that particular one was the only one I think it was using our positions to influence employment. That was the only place I saw that was a behavior of an elected official here. So just want to make sure that we're putting things in the right place when we do it.
We'll get that message out to the Ethics Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Campus.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Code enforcement, move to the police department salary ordinance amendment.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Campus.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to pass an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending appendices A and B to ordinance number 5640 to the Village Board.
Second.
Questions or comments?
We have just a little presentation if that's okay.
This is a brief overview. So
I think as the board is aware, we continue to look at ways to make the operations more efficient, more effective. So this is one of the latest in that series. Historically, property maintenance inspections have been housed out of development services. That's pretty common in the municipal industry because of the tie-in with the international codes, which are the same codes we use for building regulation, building permitting. Recently, there's been a shift. A lot of departments have moved this activity into their police department and a code enforcement division. There's a lot of efficiencies that come with that, connections with the rental housing regulations, which we do have, crime-free housing, which we do have. And there's also a strong correlation between compliance issues across both property maintenance and sometimes police-based activities. So the communities that have done this, and they include Arlington Heights, Bolingbrook, Hanover Park, Romeoville, we had conversations with each of them. They've reported very positive results. We actually presently have a working team that crosses the two departments that meets regularly to talk about code enforcement. So this will make that operation actually more efficient by housing it all in the police department. We also currently have 1 full-time and 2 part-time positions in property maintenance. This would change it to 2 full-time, 1 part-time. It would get the extra funding would come from the elimination of a clerk position in the police department to make the village whole on that. And what that would do is change our ratio. Right now, we have about 1 inspector per 39,000 of population. We were by far the outlier across the communities that we surveyed. 1 to 20 to 25,000 was more the norm, and this would put us at 1 to 25,000 with this change. So we could be more effective and more proactive with that kind of ratio. So as you know, we have a salary ordinance. We need to amend that ordinance to create the proper positions and titles under and shift this to the proper department. So this will be on the board later tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass.
So I've seen code enforcement report under police departments and other municipalities, and I have no issues with this change, particularly as it relates to our crime-free housing ordinances. It's a tough job, and I believe that it would increase their security as residents and business owners are rarely happy to see these folks. I think you might have already answered the question I'm about to ask, but and I don't necessarily have to have the specific answer right now, but communities of our relative size and development services workload, will we be able to provide more information about how many code enforcement officers are typically deployed?
So I'm not sure. What's the nature of the question?
So don't have to have the answer now, but I think it's just a matter of, for other villages or municipalities that are our size, how many code enforcement officers do they typically have?
Well, like I said, the ratio on average was 1 to 20,000. There was wide variability from 1 to 6,300 to 1 to 28,000, and then we were at 39,000. So we were a full 11,000 of population ahead per full-time equivalent. So with the average being 20 and the upper end of the range being 28, we'd be right in there with 1 to 25,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Gasoline and diesel fuel bid awards.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Milani.
move to recommend approval of the bid for gasoline and diesel fuel and related services to Petroleum Traders Corporation of Fort Wayne, Indiana for 2 years per the terms and pricing provided within its October 7th, 2021 sealed bid for an amount not to exceed the board-approved budgeted amount.
Second.
Do we have any presentation on this?
You only if you have questions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Hey, just a quick question. Looking at the providers, 2 of them were from Indiana, 1 was from Illinois. Very marginal, the difference between the 3. The one that was selected, there was some notes there about service issues. I guess the question is, who do we use now, and is a service issue worth the little bit of variance between the 2? And being that the one is in Illinois and the one selected is in Indiana.
Good question. Currently, we use Petroleum Trader, which is the low recommended vendor. We did struggle with this because we have had some late deliveries, but it has never impacted our operations. And so it wasn't a viable enough impact to our operations, even though they had some, when we call and it takes a while to get here from Indiana or whatever, they've had some delays. So the cost, we couldn't, reduce the performance just because of the gist of that. So.
But based on past history, you haven't had any problems?
Not delaying us with operation-wise.
Okay, all right. That was my concern.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joel. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
2021 Fernway Road and Ditch Reconstruction Phase 6 bid award.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the village board to accept the bid from Austin Tyler Construction, Elwood, Illinois for the 2021 Fernway Road and Ditch Reconstruction Phase 6, an amount not to exceed $1,038,822.76. Broken down by $619,782.75 for road costs and $419,40.01 for storm water costs.
Second.
Do we have a presentation?
Just 3 slides.
All right, Joel, thank you.
Again, some background. This subdivision had flooding and the roads were deteriorating. A 9-year phased project was to improve the stormwater drainage and roads, approximately $9 million, so $1 million each year. We are currently on phase 6. We looked at, one of the things we looked at it a little bit differently this year is that we still wanted to accomplish the storm work the fall, which is approximately $420K this year, which is the yellow portion on the slide. So, we thought we would be in better position if we use some of the road money this year, and you guys previously approved that, to accomplish phases 7 through 9. So that's the light blue, pink, and brown areas this year, so we can design this year and be prepared for next year, finish up the road work in the spring, and then complete 7 through 9. So that would all be part of the budget process coming up here shortly. I just want to highlight that. That's a little different than in the past. So the ITB was released. 3 contractors were very tight, really close numbers. A lot of fight for this project. One was a little bit higher than the others. Austin Tyler was the lowest bidder. That's the amount and the funding we would be allocating per funding year. And we ask that you review this and approve this project. Take any questions.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Fiscal year 2021 Budget Amendment Number 6 approval.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend that the village board approve an increase in the general fund expenditure budget in the amount of $33,994, an increase in the water and sewer fund in the amount of $4,518, and a decrease in the recreation and parks fund in the amount of $1,998 as detailed on the fiscal year 2021 amendment number 6.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Boardroom, lobby, and civic center audio visual upgrades.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the Board of Trustees to approve the contract with AVI-SPL LLC through the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchase Contract for Audiovisual Goods and Services number 2019.001535 for a cost of $500,191.98 plus a $50,019.19 contingency for a total not to exceed $550,211.18, and to authorize the village manager to approve change orders not to exceed the contingency amount, and to authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
We have a presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and the trustees. This has been a long road. I think we've all experienced, whether we're staff, whether we're residents, attendees of meetings, or elected members on the dais, we've experienced various issues with our AV systems, both here in the boardroom as well as at the Civic Center. So this evening, Mark Thompson from AVI-SPL, who is the vendor we're recommending and putting their proposal before you this evening, will be presenting with me. Let's do on the next slide here. So brief outline of what we're going to go over, just a quick project scope, just a review of our background, history, go through the design and AVI-SPL's proposal, and then feel free to ask questions at any time during this presentation. Just a general overview. Audiovisual systems used to be analog. They used to be just wire, power, amplifiers, receivers, speakers, and microphones. And they really were their own thing and required certain individuals with expertise in that area. As with many things today, everything's gone electronic and digital, like HVAC systems, like phone systems, like everything. As we say in IT, if you plug it in the wall, you better call IT. So audiovisual is not, is basically going down the same avenue, because now with audiovisual systems, it's software, it's hardware, it's IP networking, cloud storage sometimes, etc. So, project scope. So, Village Hall and Civic Center were the two main targets for these upgrades, specifically in Village Hall, the boardroom, as well as the control system, or what we refer to as a control room, which we currently don't have. The lobby area, which has been a challenge at times when we have overflow crowds for meetings. Then at the Civic Center, all the main rooms at the Civic Center, the main exhibition hall, the annex, the rotunda room, as well as the lobbies, halls, and walkways. So quick background, we formed a project team to take a look at our AV systems at these facilities. They were made up of key stakeholders from various departments, VMO, Greg Summers, Nabia Zager representing VMO, Ray Piatoni, Cindy Kelly representing Recreation Parks, Joel Van Essen, Mike Mazin, Scott Hyland representing Public Works, and then Dave Haper and myself representing IT. So we budgeted in 2020 to do a design, which we felt we needed to bring in professionals to do a design. I think staff did a yeoman's job of trying to put these systems together, but we felt it was time to bring in professionals with that type of expertise. So that took place in 2020, and then in 2021, staff decided with the boardroom renovation to combine the two projects, both the AV as well as the reconstruction of the boardroom. And so two RFPs were issued, one in June, and then proposals were due back in July. We received one proposal, and it was only from AVI-SPL to do just the AV portion of that project. And then we were vested with checking with vendors as to why we didn't get a better response. Excuse me. And so we extended the deadline. We did get a lot of feedback. There were concerns about supply chain, labor issues, scope. So we reissued the RFP, extended deadlines, and then unfortunately we had the same result. So AVI-SPL was the only vendor to propose on just the AV portion. So then staff got back together. We decided to forego doing the reconstruction of the boardroom and just pursue the audiovisual renovation work or the upgrades. And so in order to do that, had to go back to AVI-SPL to refine the scope of the project because they were depending on the construction to do some of the work for them. And so Mark Thompson, myself, worked to refine that scope in August and September, and then they put together a new proposal using the Omnia Cooperative Purchase Contract. That proposal was put before the Technology Commission on October 12th, and they now recommended it to the Committee of the Whole. So basically, why are we doing this? Just to revisit, and this is just some of the major issues we've had. The systems in both locations are unreliable and used at times antiquated technology. I believe some of the technology and systems at the Civic Center are original to the building. And so we had a technician out last week to fix some things, and he had to go in the Wayback Machine to address some of those issues. So a lot of old technology, not really a thoughtful, holistic approach was taken when these systems were put together. In the spirit of Halloween, they were kind of Frankenstein together, and which makes them very difficult to support and maintain. Also, they're not user-friendly. Staff need a lot of assistance at times to use these systems, or a lot of training. AV is challenging in and of its own because you have people, just like today, come in with an Apple Mac that needs to connect to the viewing screen. You got to have adapters, etc., as well as many other issues. So the systems we have today are by no means user-friendly. The displays are not adequate for viewing, whether it's online viewing or it's in-person viewing. At the Tech Commission meeting last week, had some members mention to me that when the camera pans to the screen, they can't see anything. So that's a problem for transparency. It's not ideal. And then even within the room itself, the viewing locations are not ideal for what we're doing here. The system's is not flexible and flexible. This is a multi-purpose room at times. We have hearings in here. We have other events in here. Civic Center rooms are very multi-purpose oriented, and so the system has got to be very flexible, very agile to be able to adjust to different requirements and what have you. Current system is not. It's not suitable for online meetings, so Mayor Pekow isn't here, but George and I and Greg were here at times for the online meetings during COVID and talking about a challenge. This system was by no means ready to connect transparently to a Zoom system. And so that was a challenge for trustees attending that meeting. It was a challenge for audiences listening to it. And so cameras are not adequate for online viewing. This kind of gets to that the cameras have to pan to various things. If you have multiple cameras, you could have presets that could focus in on the speaker, on the display, whatever video's playing, whatever presentation's playing, etc. The lobby displays, there is a delay. There's about a 20-second delay because the lobby screens are going off of our live stream out of the cloud, and on YouTube, and so there is some latency there, which when the doors are open, I'm sure you've realized during meetings, you hear this echoing going back and forth, not to mention it's very confusing. And then the sound isn't very good out there either. Also, the unsatisfactory location of the control rack. Trustees have got to work their way around these racks. When there's an issue, the meetings get disrupted because I've got to go, or the AV person's got to go adjust something there. And then finally, the room architecture, why these rooms are very attractive and stimulating to the eyes. They're like an American Ninja episode for putting in AV systems. Very challenging with the tall ceilings, light, obstructed views, HVAC systems. They're quite a challenge from that standpoint. So, with that being said, Mark is going to take it from here, and he's going to show you how AVI-SPL's proposal is going to address these challenges.
Thank you, Dave. I'm Mark Thompson from AVI-SPL. A little bit about AVI-SPL. We're the largest AV integrator in the world. We have over 50 offices throughout the world. Our local office here is in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I've been personally doing AV since about '97. So that's just a little background for everyone. So the way we handled this was with the design. We met with all the different parties that use the rooms and discussed how they use them and what the shortfalls are, as Dave mentioned, and came up with a plan to address as many of the issues as possible and make the rooms function in multiple facilities, so they're not limited to one application. So just kind of run you through some of the basics, not get too technical into the weeds here, but just give some of the highlights of what the overall AV plan is. So we'll start with the room we're in here today. I tried to, so if you got the red dots there, the box that goes with those is a little IP over video box that gives us the ability to plug in a computer and present content from those locations in the room. That content can go to all the displays in the system, including the lobby. It also gives us the ability to share that content online, so we're not relying on the camera to show the content to the outside viewer. We can have an in-room video shot and content being displayed at the same time, so that the content's easily readable to anybody, whether they're present or a remote location. We're going to upgrade the displays in the room. Right now, the biggest issue is this projector screen. When the room's daylight or bright, the image gets washed, and there's only one angle to see. So we've added 4 85-inch displays, high nit brightness, 4K. So everybody in the room can comfortably see the presentation now without having to reorient themselves. And then we added a new audio system, which the main thing that everybody will see in the room are the speakers. We have some large line array speakers that will be on the wall to cover the room with sufficient audio. There's a bunch of stuff that will be in the control room behind that, DSPs and echo cancellation equipment and stuff to provide clear and very tangible audio.
If I may interject, that floor plan there, you may be thinking, that doesn't look like our floor plan. That floor plan actually is what we were looking at for the proposed renovation. And so AVI-SPL was working off of that floor plan instead of the existing one.
So we can go to the next slide, yeah. So this shows some more of the features of the room. At the dais, we're going to add discussion microphones at each location. They're similar to the ones that are there now, but they're also going to have speakers on them to help reinforce the audio in the room for the members of the board or whoever might happen to be up there. And then we are also going to have one at the lectern location. And then in addition to that, we'll have wireless microphones, tabletops, and handhelds, and lavs for different participants in the room. Depending on how the room is being used at that time, we can accommodate anybody. We're going to add fixed cameras to the room. We've got 5 locations. The first will be up at the front below the door to give a good shot if somebody's at the lectern or center of the room. And then we have 2 side cameras to cover the room, and then 2 front cameras that will force the board. That will give us the ability to fade in and zoom in and out of different shots. We can have a wide angle shot, a focus shot, and all that will be fed into a production system, which gives the operator the ability to produce basically a live TV event. So you'll be able to look more professional on the outgoing content to the community. We also have a control system, touch panel in the room for the operator to control it from in the room or from the equipment location, which is planned to be up on the balcony. We also have the ability for that control panel to be mimicked on an iPad. So there's a wireless iPad that can control the room as well. Go to the next screen, we can kind of see. So this is some of the equipment that'll be up in the control room. We have a joystick controller for the cameras so the operator can go ahead and focus in on any shots that are relevant in the room. We've also got the ability to do presets. So if it's a non-produced event, we can have the cameras pre-shot to certain things so there's not an operator required. We're also going to bring in the ability for the room to do Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, WebEx, whatever, using a soft codec, which will be plugged into one of the HDMI inputs. And all that does is gives us the ability with an AV bridge to use the cameras, displays, speakers, and mics within the room in a Zoom meeting or whatever flavor is desired. So it adds a lot more flexibility to the space. So if there's an impromptu meeting, it's easy to accommodate.
A key component is we're going to be moving all the AV equipment that's on either side of the dais. That will be moving up into that area. And then when the construction is done, that will be walled off and so forth. So you won't have that equipment behind you, and then we'll be able to have a control person up there producing the meeting if needed.
For the lobby, we're going to reuse the existing displays and digital signage, but we're going to add these displays to our video network, so it'll be a live image from the room, real time, no delay. We're adding sound bars to the displays for additional sound reinforcement. Right now the sound out there is not adequate if there's multiple people out in the lobby, so we're reinforcing that and just beefing it up basically so it's more usable when there's overflow. So on to the Civic Center exhibition hall. We're planning on some updates based on discussions with the staff and how the room's used for different events such as bingo, staff parties. There's a bunch of different things that they talked about. So we tried to accommodate everything. And then we also added the element of being able to do video conferencing within the space. So now the room can function as a conference room as well. So if you look at all the red dots, those are existing speaker locations. We're going to replace them with new speakers as the speakers are pretty much all blown in there right now. And we're going to have 6 displays in the room. The 4 outside are the 75-inch displays, and then the 2 centers will be 85-inch displays. The video cameras will have one on either side to capture, depending how the room's set up. We're going to have wall inputs to plug in computers, to display presentations to the displays. Also, microphone inputs for hardwired mics. We'll have wireless mics in the space. We'll have a Bluetooth audio plate. That way, if the room's being rented out for a private event, they don't have to touch the main system. They can just connect Bluetooth. The staff will have it preset, and they can just use their own iPad or whatever to use it so they're not touching the main system. This will also prevent speakers from blowing, et cetera, because we'll have preset levels. The other thing we're doing to this space that's not available now is we're connecting all the spaces as one. So if the whole building's being used at the same time, anything we're presenting in here can be presented to the other spaces, so the content can be shared throughout the entire building, whether it be video, audio. And I also mentioned there will be video conferencing there, so now people can host Zoom, Teams, whatever type of meeting they'd like in the room. So next up is the rotunda room. We're adding 3 new speakers in here and a display. This will give the ability to do presentations, small meetings within the room. This room can also be tied to the main room, so it could be used as a green room or something for staging if there's a bigger event going on in one of the other spaces, and they'll know what's going on. We'll have a small in-wall controller for ease of use, which makes the room stand alone. Next up is the Annex Center. It's very similar to the first room. The difference is we're going to reuse the existing screen. We had a lot of feedback from the staff that they do like to have that big screen for when it's all one room. So we're upgrading to a new laser projector, which doesn't have maintenance like a typical projector. There's no replacing of light bulbs, etc. We're adding new 75-inch displays for fallback, and then camera for video conferencing. We'll have the Bluetooth for the room as well, so if it's a private event, they can host their audio. And then HDMI input wall plates in several locations in the room, so presentations or video can be plugged in easily and displayed on the screens. Again, this room can connect with the other rooms, so this could be the master, and everything from here could go to all the other rooms, or whatever going on in the other rooms can come to here. So it goes both ways. This way we've got the most flexibility and use cases for the space. And this is just kind of an overview of the speakers that we'll be replacing, that most of them are existing. So we've got the hallways and the public areas. That way the audio can be tied from the different rooms to the hallways for overflow. We are understanding of certain times this room has overflow out in this hallway, so we'll have tables and such set up. So all that can be heard out there. Or in the meantime, it could play background music. So it's just a matter of picking what you want to do, but we've given the flexibility to do it all. Any questions? Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass.
So these changes are going to be very welcome. For starters, for me, I'm going to have a bit less neck strain from having to try to view. I feel like I'm always sitting front and to the right of this whenever we have a presentation heavy day like today. We've also had occasional microphone feedback issues here, which have been, rampant. That's never pleasant for anyone's ears. I just want to say, over the past couple of years, we've been streaming our board meetings to continue transparency with the public, and it started with Nabiha holding a mobile device to moving to our tripod-based camera to now install cameras. This is a great next step. It's going to improve the experience for all our residents. It's going to open up our seating over here a little bit, and I think just overall it's going to be a better production quality. One question I have, and I didn't see anything that stood out to me within the hall. I mean, at some point we will get to the construction of the hall. I didn't see anything that stood out that would require any future proofing, but is that something that you were considering in your plans as far as the upcoming construction?
Yes, we kept in mind that the construction would eventually happen. In our original proposal, as you saw on the floor plan, staff areas were off to the sides now. We were going to have displays over there and additional speakers and stuff. So we're planning on having that infrastructure ready to go up in there once the walls are opened up and stuff. So right now we had to rethink our design a little because originally we were planning everything going straight up to the new space, but there's not a pathway. So now we're going down to the TTR and using some transmitters, receivers to use some existing fibers that are down there that we can go back to another room and then back up to there. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, AVI-SPL. Thank you, Dave Squared, in the IT department, and the Technology Commission for providing the plan and giving us an update on these updates.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Healy.
AVI-SPL, thank you for stepping forward. I mean, this is a great, we thank you for persevering, and Dave, thanks for persevering yourself too, for helping with this out. But one problem is, why are we improving the Civic Center? We have a separate accounting for Civic Center events, and it seems like we've lost money there every year. We're going to invest another 100 and some thousand there. I'm just not sure if it makes economic sense to me that, again, the Civic Center, we don't foresee, at least I'm not aware of a push in volume, a push in pricing, or anything like that. We're just worried about recovering our costs on this.
Sure. And so as the board may recall, we have a facilities assessment going on right now, and that'll be part of our conversations about the future of the Civic Center. Either way, whether it stays in the rental business, it's always going to have some type of rental element to it, and audio is very important for the rentals. So as you mentioned, it is meant to be a self-sustaining entity, and we just have to bring that audio up into current standards if we want to hope to continue that.
I guess it's what came first, the chicken or the egg. By the time we get the demand for the Civic Center, possibly there'll be a new wave of technical advancement these days. I mean, it's right now I just can't see investing that money in the Civic Center without a plan for how we're going to get it back. That's me. Okay. But boardroom, I'm excited about this. I couldn't be better.
If I may mention, I think the Civic Center would be utilized a lot better and a lot more often by staff. There are times that we need to hold trainings, and we don't really have a room of that size elsewhere in the village, except maybe the police training room, which is utilized quite often. And so I know for whether it be staff events or it will be hosting programs through GMIS Illinois or GFOA or whatever these other organizations, Illinois Municipal League or whatever, if we want to host events, we can't really do that right now. And so a system like that enables us the ability to work with our partners both within Orland Park as well as those outside of Orland Park.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Milani?
Just going back to what Trustee Healy was saying, didn't we just approve increases for the Civic Center rates?
Yes, we did.
To try and gain some additional revenues from them?
Yep, that's the goal of all of these increases is to continue our operational self-sustaining, yes, so we just approved that, and then audio obviously is an important component if we're going to keep doing rentals because of weddings and whatnot.
Right, and prior to about a year or so ago, yes, the Civic Center was looked at as a separate entity, but then we brought it into the village, so it is part of the Parks and Rec now. So, it does get a little bit more, oversight, although the manager that was there previous to the move was doing a good job when we're getting things headed closer to the point where we were making money. Unfortunately, COVID kind of came around and ruined that for a while as far as events were concerned, but now they're seeing an uptick in their events. I think they've got plenty on the calendar for the rest of the year. So hopefully next year, as Trustee Healy mentioned, we'll start getting closer to the, seeing getting us into the black instead of the red. So.
Any other comments? Just wanted to say one thing to Trustee Healy's point. It would be nice to have some sort of marketing plan for the Civic Center, not just for your weddings or coffees, but to the business community utilizing these enhancements. So I'd really like to see that.
Absolutely.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Milani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas?
Aye. Are there any non-scheduled citizens or visitors to speak? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Milani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas?
Aye. If we can reconvene at 7:35 for our Board of Trustees meeting.